3, 2, 1. Da, 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 da. Hi, I'm Euclidean Vision. Welcome one and all to my review of Overwatch's newest animated short, Reunion. I didn't really get to say too much in my live reaction of Reunion, so I wanted to fully illustrate my thoughts in a more proper and constructive manner than just going, why, no, because that's not really helpful to anyone. So, I also initially said this would take me like a day. It's actually been more than a week, and sorry about that, but I've got a job and something sort of resembling a life. But mainly constructing my thoughts on this took a lot of actual work and some effort, never mind the extra research I ended up having to do. So if you want like a TLDR, I gave it a 6 out of 10 score in my live reaction. That kind of sticks. Most everything I'm about to expand upon here really just boils down to it's mediocre as a story and as a piece of media, even before you look at its deeper, more like systemic flaws. And to be honest, I hate it. Like, KDA Pop Stars is more worth your time as a display of characterization and storytelling, and again, just purely as a piece of media, while being like far more unapologetically, substantially true to itself as such. Like, it's only a music video, but it's personally a way greater use of your time as like a piece of media related to a video game. But despite that, at this point, my 6 out of 10 still just about stands on Reunion. So let's expand on why I feel that way. So let's start off with the positive and see that change over time. The animation is just stunning all around. Blizzard's technical department, you know what you're doing. I'm not an animator, but I can tell from just looking at it, you know what you're doing. Like that pie, look at that pie. Oh, that is one juicy looking pie. I've never wanted to eat an imaginary thing before, but I'd have a slice of that pie. Things like the smoke and the flashbang effects and everything is like the smoke especially is really nice. How it actually manages to seem like real natural smoke is going to be something quite difficult to do, I imagine. But if we look at some bit more of the meat and bones, the character animation, like especially the facial animation, is some of the best I've seen in a while. Like, feels naturalistic. It all seems like normal facial movements, but it's being performed by these cartoonish characters, and it's very stylized and accentuated. The character movement itself is really like fluid, but it's got a nice bit of weight to it, especially like in the action scenes. But they still manage to use the animation to get over some elements of like character and and again the stylization, like the hat tip. It's only a very simple thing, but like the way that it's executed on, as well as the moment itself, is really nice. It shows like a ton of personality, which for a character like Bob, who's probably the best character in the short, that's really important. No, well done on that. That looks really good. It really conveys what you're trying to get over. That sort of thing still carries over into the more human characters, or the human characters, where some of their movements might sort of look uncanny to an extent, or like overly cartoony, but it works in situ. It enables this sort of like slightly heightened sense of reality that we aren't in exactly the real world, and even the way that the normal characters move has this sort of slightly exaggerated motion, which helps to sort of convey the atmosphere. And hey, really good. Like on all counts, Blizzard, your animation's great. Continuing on with your strong technical department, the sound design. Like there's nothing like out of the ordinary in this short, as far as I know. Again, I'm not really a sound designer. I know sort of what I'm on. There's nothing out of the ordinary, but it's all really clean. It's all really polished and well mixed. The one sound effect particularly that gets me is that train crash. It's just meaty. So again, really nicely done. As we're talking about the sound, Jennifer Hale is on fire as Ash. Like, can't comment on the accent. I'm from the UK. I'm not going to talk about anything like that. But in the bite and the fire that she brings to that character, that's also well contrasted with this certain elegant musicality. It's, yeah, really nicely portrayed. It, like, it ties into sort of some of the themes of the character and stuff as well. Yeah, really, really well done. Great choice on Jennifer Hale. She's she's a well-lauded voice actress for good reason. So yeah, Matt Mercer, smooth as ever. That dude doesn't need any more praise, not from me anyway. He's known worldwide as a talented man. So well done to the both of them. Apparently they recorded their lines together, and it kind of shows. Like you can really feel the dynamic between the two characters, which is really good. The music is really fitting, both like aesthetically and tonally. It starts off in this sort of classic folk country that builds into like some weird modern rock interpretation when we get to the action scene, which sort of like, you know, again thematically reflects McCree's character as this old school countryman in a future universe. So yeah, there's some really good. It's only quite simple. They're not doing anything totally out of the ordinary here, but what they're doing is really nicely polished. They even like change up the music for Echo's reveal, going into like synths and bells and strings that then combine into McCree's country style theme when they reunite, like when they actually sort of converse with each other. And then that fully sort of rounds back out into a classical country, even like sort of like a Latin style tune at the end with like trumpets and harmonica, like the solo harmonica as he rides off on his own. Again, pretty thematic. You know, it's been done to death before, but hey, we're in a world of tropes, in an IP drowning in tropes. It's fine. Like, yeah, it works. It just helps reaffirm what we know about the character, and that's great. I'd even go as far to say that this entire piece was like scored to the short rather than being a collection of pieces, and yeah, it all works really well for what it is. So moving on to the cinematography and the direction and the editing, all of the sort of visual applications beyond the sort of core animation, which again, largely really good. It's all really like tonally and visually fitting to what's going on. There's tons of references and reinterpretations to classic moments from films of the past, and especially westerns, and yeah, there's some really nice use of these shots to convey character and momentum, and yeah, really, really nice. The opening scene particularly I really like, because it conveys McCree's character really well, especially while not showing him fully, which also plays again into the nature of his character, you know, the man with no name, etc., which literally plays in the song as he's leaving the diner. His drawn out like emergence from the smoke towards the end, like how long we have to wait to fully see McCree's face, helps like further this idea of a man who works from the shadows. But also kind of offers this contrasting view of McCree as like something of a showman, like someone who builds up to a big reveal, and as we know him, that does sound quite apt. So again, using the visual language of the short to help solidify our ideas about these characters is really well done. If I'll at least admit, especially on McCree's part, the sort of tone of his character is really well conveyed through things that aren't just McCree himself. Again, Ash is really well visually portrayed. She's consistently made to look powerful, like through the way that she's framed and shot early on, and this like shifts throughout the short as her and McCree sort of balance out, and we see the adversarial yet equal, and that grenade throw uses quite a few little bits of cinematic technique to switch the outcome of the fight while simultaneously switching our perspective of Ash to one of weakness. And it's that tiny shot of the sort of point of view of the grenade is really nice in conveying the turn of events. The editing itself, there's again nothing particularly out of the ordinary. It's all really nice and simple. It's trying to just show the action. There's nothing here that's trying to suggest any further crazy things. So yeah, but that works. It's just a standard action character dynamic sequence. There's some really nice cuts between a few things that helps to sort of give us a clear idea of what the sensation is at the moment, and yeah, it's really nice. The action, all really well choreographed. You can always really see very clearly what's going on. Like it's all sequenced well together. There's loads of match-on action, so you'll see an action occur and then you'll see its effect in the next shot or in the transition of shots, and really, really good for just keeping up continuity and understanding. The Echo introduction itself makes like really good use of close-ups and obscured framing, similar to McCree, but it's done way more to add this mystique. Whereas McCree would get an impression of his character without seeing him fully. With Echo, we really don't, because all we really get to see is her physicality at first. We don't have any prior form of reference, cough, because we totally have prior form of reference. And that's the only reason I was excited. But okay, the way that she's at least built up to be fully shown at the end is it's really nice. It helps convey that mystery and importance, supposed importance, as we build up to actually learning who Echo is. There is one bit that I really don't enjoy in this short, and I personally think it comes down to like the direction. It could have been part of the screenplay. Either way, the standoff scene, it's like three and a half standoff scenes long. That's way too long. Like, any possible tension was lost really early on, and the attempts at comedy towards the end undercut any sense of tension that would have been there in the first place. It just really killed the pacing and the tension for me. Again, the cinematography of the scene itself is really good, making loads of references, and we've got this continuous closing in of frame and focus to point out that we're boiling up to something. But the boil takes forever. Yeah, that was the one bit that, I don't know, obviously it's hard to determine where the problem came from there, but I definitely found that section of the short very problematic in that it destroyed any like suspension of disbelief, any sense of investment. It really just brought me out of it, any sense of immersion. It totally just knocked me out of the story, and I kind of laughed at it, not with it. So, it's only a little thing. Maybe think about that for future Blizzard, like work on your comedic timing a little. Some people who don't have to work on their timing would be Jennifer Hale and Matt Mercer. The dialogue is really good. There's nothing very distinctive. There's nothing out of the ordinary. There's no clever use of dialogue here, really. It's all in character, used to display emotion and context. There's no need for anything overly complicated in something like this. Again, vocally, Ash steals the show for me in terms of performance, at least. Like,
you promised you'd write.
Is probably like my favourite line in the short. Her best lines, sadly, are in her gameplay trailer recently, so I don't know if that's to do with the nature of the lines or the character. No. My favourite particular line of the short, all told, though, would have to be McCree's "You were never one to shy away from a good tip." And I kind of hope you meant that, Blizzard. Like, if you didn't mean that as the joke, then that's just kind of an awkward way to say it. So I kind of hope you were going for the innuendo there. I really hope you were. But as they're not actually lovers or ex-lovers, maybe you weren't, which... some of Echo's lines occasionally feel like a little stilted. And she doesn't have many. And it sort of works at times at sort of conveying her sort of machine nature. But sometimes it just feels clunky, especially the, like, Jesse, wait. The way that's enunciated and, like, the timing of the visuals with it feels really strange or very clunky, at least. But for the most part, yeah, the voice is certainly, like, emotive and fitting for the character, in that she's got this really nice, rich, sensuous voice going on. It's really, yeah, well, good choice, whoever Echo's voice actress is. Well done to you. But yeah, it's I don't know if there's something, again, to do with the direction that makes some of those lines feel clunky. Certain lines, especially the one about McCree's arm, are certainly emoted to suggest certain things that we learn after the short aren't actually the case, that Bob didn't actually rip off McCree's arm. I feel these examples are likely due to, like, a combination of the script and the voice actors maybe not having, like, visual cues or context exactly for some of their dialogue. And, like, especially that one was Jennifer Hale told that McCree's arm wasn't ripped off by Bob, so that she knew to enunciate the words slightly differently so that wasn't implied by what she said. Unsure. I would imagine, yes, it comes down to some sort of miscommunication from the writing team, or like a misunderstanding by the vocal director. If the actors had the context, then I imagine it wouldn't be as misleading. So, these are like minor problems. There are one or two other instances of this across Reunion. And when certain implications within the short, especially like this one that stems directly from dialogue, have already had to be quashed or expanded upon, that kind of suggests that something wasn't made clear somewhere along the process, and that effect carries over to the audience as well. And the way that those story beats have been clarified has also been like problematic, sacrificing immersion and like narrative integrity in order to just validate certain ideas about the situation that should have been portrayed clearly in the first place, so that you didn't have to do this. So I said that things were going to go downhill from the beginning, and now we look at the isolated story, like the plot of just the short itself. Of course, Overwatch is very extra-textual, intertextual, intratextual, whatever, all the postmodern words. There's a bunch of media about Overwatch that it helps to know bits of in order to understand others. So looking at the reunion short, you kind of have to know something about McCree. It helps to have seen the Echo's body before, whereas if you hadn't seen these things, you then can really get to see how well the short is portraying what it's trying to portray. If you don't know the extra details, but the short can like inform you of them in some way, or even just suggest at them, that's like the sign of good characterization. And we'll see as we go along that, especially as an isolated story, Reunion is... Right, let's start again at the beginning. The plot setup is contrived as all hell. Why is McCree there? Why was he able to sit in the diner like only a few feet away from what they were doing? Why did he let them do it? Why didn't he do it himself? Why did he maybe let people die for it to happen? Never mind that Ash and the Deadlock Gang didn't have any genuine investment, cause, or like knowledge about what they were stealing. If they did, this would all make a lot more sense. Their investment is literally blow up a train for money. And luckily, it's the exact train that McCree needs to get Echo off. And he's not... My mind is breaking trying to make it all make some kind of genuine sense. Does it really matter? No, it's like the setup for the plot, it's fine. But when it feels just so utterly illogical and contrived, yeah, it kind of does ruin my immersion. Again, I'm going to mention that phrase a few times. Something else that destroys my immersion is the fact there's no stakes. There's no actual stakes in a reunion. We learn early on that McCree is like, I want what's in the crate. Why? We don't know why, we don't know how, we've never had any indication of this before. Should we have to depend on extra textual stuff? Neither the audience or the characters end up with a genuine understanding or personal value invested in whatever is in the crate. So there's no real stakes. So there's no actual conflict. And it makes it all... As soon as we saw the crate and that McCree wanted it, I was like, oh, McCree's going to get the crate then. And Ash doesn't care, because she doesn't care. So why do I? Oh wait, I don't. Yeah, okay, I did just say that no one had any understanding or personal value. Ash and McCree's conflict was over something that only one of them understood and, like, maybe cared about. There's no genuine suggestion that McCree cares. He's just like, oh, it needs to be done. So, Ash and McCree's conflict isn't real. It's not even, like, a surface level conflict. It's not personal or logical, really. The best you can offer is, like, it's an expository parallel to their relationship or current situation regarding each other that just sort of explodes as mindless, messy conflict that has nothing to do with their actual problems with each other. If that was the case, if they were having a fight over why they hate each other, there'd be higher stakes. If Ash wanted what was in the box particularly, there'd be higher stakes. Or there'd be stakes at all. Can you see why this angers me so much? So all the Echo the Crate does is facilitate them having a lover's spat that they should have had as an actual lover's spat, but apparently wouldn't have even been a lover's spat. So, I mean, yeah, even McCree's aims regarding Echo seem instigated out of logic and purpose, rather than his own personal wants and emotions, despite the fact that they might have a possible emotional connection. Totally unsure. Like, the short does not make that clear. Is that good in bunny ears going forwards? You can argue it is. I imagine you can tell what I think of that. Something else that kind of bugs me about the Echo build-up is that there was nothing beyond the Chekhov's gun or Chekhov's chip to suggest anything about her at all. And especially, there's nothing to suggest that McCree cares for the chip or Echo herself, which at the time, the chip is Echo. I think it would have been kind of interesting to see, like, kind of a stark removal from McCree's usually composed character, if he were to show some degree of care or worry for the chip before bringing it to Echo's body. Like, when the train crashes, if he did drop his fork and slam his hand down on the table. We then know that he actually was, genuinely invested in whatever the chip was, rather than just leaving it on the table. He could also have done it more calmly than that, to stay in character, but to still show his care for it. Calmly putting the fork down as the train comes along, because he knows it's going to be blown up. I mean, if he doesn't, then the plot's even more contrived than it was before, so I'm going to hopefully imagine that he knew it was going to blow up, and so in that instance he could calmly put the fork down, and his hand would hit the table just before the explosions went off, so he knew that Echo was safe. That would have been much nicer. Sorry, I would have understood that McCree cared about it to the extent that he would be willing to protect it somehow, which meant that it was that important, and that it gives the suggestion that it's not just a physical chip. It contains a personality. He's protecting a person in that instance. But fine, whatever. Didn't happen. He doesn't really care, as far as the short seems to suggest. So, there is also the problem, yes, okay, if Echo had been genuinely understood beforehand, the twist would have been ruined. So there had to be some compromise somewhere. So as a further counterpoint, we could have done an intertextual bait and switch that would have both made her connection to McCree more understood when it occurred, while still keeping the twist as an actual twist. McCree has a voice line on Route 66 where he says, "Don't feel right coming back here." If we'd extended that line a little bit to, "It don't feel right coming back here, but it'll all be worth it to see her again," gives us a suggestion at an important character to come. And then when he and Ash meet each other in the short, we'll be like, "Oh, that's the lady he was on about." That doesn't seem like the lady he was on about. They don't seem pleased to see each other, especially to the extent that he mentioned. And then when Echo gets revealed, we go, "Oh, that's the person that he cares about." And she's there then hundreds of times more understood than she is at present. So, did it have to be the case? No. I'm just offering suggestions to maybe make what you were doing have a bit more emotional investment to it. Blizzard, just, kind of want your stories to be better. So, as we move sort of into how this short affects everything else, or how everything else affects this short, there are several things that we are shown elsewhere that the short doesn't really help clarify or make a real investment into. Like, obviously the relationship between Echo's body and whatever it was initially, fine. We're not going to see that, and it's apparently just lazy character design is the reason that we're not going to see that, because it was never Athena. Fine. But something that really annoys me, we don't have any clue from the short about Ash's motivation, about what her genuine motivation is. Which is to make a family, and that's a nice, make a family. That's a nice motivation. And you could have had one line, or something in the short somewhere to suggest that was that important to her. Like when she sees McCree again, you broke up the family, or calling him a black sheep continuously. Things like that would have helped carry the themes of the character into the short, without just rubbing it in our faces that she's from a rich background and she's telling us her origin story. You don't need to be told it, but you can suggest things at us. A piece of media shouldn't have to rely on its connected media in order to make sense or be narratively satisfying or to convey character. There were some very simple options for you to actually be able to display way more thoroughly what something like Ash's motivation or her relationship to Bob are. So, the short itself doesn't really convey much of its external media very well. It also doesn't connect to it very well. There's very little confirmable or tangible effect on the overall story or any connected plot lines from what happens in Reunion. Echo's existence or importance and McCree's answer to recall are the only theoretically impactful changes going forward. But they're also both so kind of indeterminate in what they actually mean that they end up being barely worth discussing beyond a certain point, because it could be anything. So the short itself doesn't do much for the overall plot going forward, really. It suggests that there are things moving forward. Good, that's a positive that I'm surprised I'm actually seeing. But what do they actually mean? No idea. We don't know. And there's nothing there to suggest what we know. I can theorize till my face is blue about what it all means. But what worth is that, really, do you know? So, we also don't get anything, those are the major points. Some of the slightly more minor points. We don't gain any actual knowledge about the Deadlock Gang fallout with McCree, so we don't get any, his development with his early relationship with Reyes either, which I kind of expected from this short, maybe, because Reyes is really important going forward, and McCree's a really useful avenue into exploring his character. So, that's not there. We have no idea why McCree fell out with the Deadlock Gang, so we don't know why him and Ash are at odds, despite their possible lingering feelings, which, which apparently no. They're ex-lovers, they're meant to act like ex-lovers who aren't ex-lovers. Such originality, much character nuance. Get fucked. No wonder, literally no wonder Ash is tsundere as fuck, her own creators have pussy blocked her after the fact. She's always created as a character who's built having an emotional connection to McCree, and then they go, oh, but you don't actually have that kind of emotional connection to McCree, even though that's being portrayed really heavily through your character. Obviously, it doesn't have to have been the case. It doesn't have to have been. Neither do any lingering romantic feelings. That's fine. It doesn't have to be there. But it's kind of what they were indicating. People aren't seeing this idea just because McCree and Ash are male and female respectively, and therefore they must have done the deed, or at least want to. No, Reunion's use of cinematic language, technique, tropes very heavily suggest that this is likely the case. It's not their respective genitalia that is pointing this idea out to people. Overwatch has the potential and opportunities present to portray a mature and identifiable romantic relationship, and they have done so to some small extent. This seemed like a relatively reliable method for them to do so again and execute on the idea well. And then they did. The suggestion of feelings was really well conveyed, and then they were like, oh, no, that's not it. What it seems? Yeah, that's not it. Well, the obvious romantic suggestions that you put in there are obvious, but they're not romantic suggestions. Is this some crazy post-truth BS or what? Do you know, no, what you're seeing and what we objectively kind of put there, that's not what it is. What? I don't know if things, again, not being what they were suggested to be. I mentioned this earlier, way to neuter Bob in, the single worst way possible. He was nearly the most interestingly developed character in the entire short, until you realised that you were very misleading what you'd been trying to express, and you've designed a plot point for later on, and so you resorted to a quick fix measure that you didn't have to do. You could have just left it sit. Bob is a better character if he did rip McCree's arm off. McCree's arm loss is going to have to be pretty important to make up for that. But you could have just left it as us thinking that Bob ripped it off. And then when it became, and use that as a plot point in the future, for when he maybe explains to someone, oh no, it wasn't Bob. It was this. Oh wait, what? That's even more important, or crazy, or... So, if you haven't noticed, I haven't actually said it yet, but I imagine everyone's realising it. I abhor storytelling via tweets. It absolutely incenses me. I'm not exactly fond of developments being portrayed through other non-diegetic means either, especially when they're done poorly in themselves, like the Echo name reveal. That is just so It infuriates me. I don't know if I can say that it's bad, but I mean, it's bad. So, how they couldn't have just suggested her name in world, or said it, like McCree could have called her by her name, maybe. How difficult would that have been? So then we could have been left without learning her name. Like, add to the mystique by just being like, the mysterious robot, woo! Instead of just being like, oh yeah, the mysterious robot is called Echo, by the way. Thanks. Way to, again, just destroy my immersion. It's bad enough, Blizzard, waiting around for you lot to tell a damn proper story, without you ruining any kind of suspense or possible storylines or genuine immersion, again, that could have existed by just chucking a factoid on Twitter that you could have expressed in world if you were better storytellers, or you could leave alone until you're able to clarify the situation via a moment in a subsequent story, maybe. As just like a kind of relevant side note, I studied film in uni, so hopefully that kind of points to the fact that I kind of should know what I'm talking about here. But one of the few things I actually learned, like one of the few genuine things I actually learned, if you have to explain something about a piece of media after the fact, you did a bad job of portraying it in the first place. That is your fault. You screwed up. Get better. Don't get more used to covering up your mistakes. Or justifying your mistakes, yeah. Instead of getting better at justifying your mistakes, how about you get better at not making mistakes? That's kind of like a massive issue I wanted to bring up, so I'm now actually going to properly look at characters and things, so... Sorry, that really infuriates me, and I wish that it wasn't the case so often. So, exactly, what does Reunion do for the story of Overwatch all told? If we look at McCree, we've had quite a nice bit of character development for him, at least seeing more of his younger years, especially the emotional connection via Ashe that really must have shaped who he was, or helped shape his outlook on the world now. What that or the Deadlock Gang mean to them collectively, or what it did mean, or why they formed it in the first place, kind of unknown. I mean, we have Ashe's motivation of creating a family. Was McCree without family and wanted a family? Cool, that's nice, but we don't know. We've also got a little bit of development for him via Echo, that he obviously views her as important, whatever or whoever she is. And there's some suggestion that there's an emotional connection there. It might be something else. I'll touch on that. But did McCree, out of all the characters in Overwatch, did he need another personal and emotional connection? Did he really? When there's some characters who have, like, very few. Because, like, if you keep overloading your characters into another character, the character relationships will start to detriment each other. Never mind those other characters that are comparatively very unloved. So, at least we do know from this, on an actual plot point, yay, that McCree is setting out on his own in support of Overwatch regarding Recall. Which I think is really interesting. I'm glad they did this. It's best for his character personally. But we still don't know what he's doing or what he would want to do. So it still leaves us in this just kind of stagnant stasis. I've done a video speculating on the further future of McCree. It'll be in the top corner now. That hopefully outlines where he could be going from this point, if you want something to like tide you over while we wait for Blizzard to tell that story. But there's nothing to indicate from the short itself which of those exactly he'd be going off to do. All we know is that he's going out on his own to support Overwatch, which I like. I'm actually really happy with that as resolution. I'd just rather we had a bit more understanding behind it. Looking at Ashe, I love her visuals. Well, no, I don't love her visual design. I hate that we got a cowgirl. I hate that this is what we ended up with, and we could have had far more interesting characters turn up, and far more poignant characters as well. But she does have a good visual design. Like, I can't argue that at all. Like, she fits within the universe. She's similar enough, but distinct enough from McCree to feel like her own character while keeping up this sense of consistency, like showing the connections between them. I especially like that she's a bit of more a smart version of what McCree is. Like, I love the tie. I think it's just a really good little bit of character design there. But again, there's far more deserving characters already in World from a design standpoint, from a hero standpoint, from a story standpoint, gameplay standpoint, and she still feels like she could just have been a secondary character and she'd never have turned up again. There were way cooler options, guys. Yes, she's fun to play in-game. Great. There's a lot of personality to her. Like, Ash is brimming with personality. There's very little character. Even going off her origin story, she doesn't have a grand motivation that functions properly within the world and the grander narrative. And again, that isn't even shown in Reunion as it is. So, I like her goal, like the whole Whitebeard dream of making a family. That's great. Would it maybe have been better later on when we've got all of our focal characters involved and these more slightly disconnected characters or slightly less major characters would make more sense to bring in like a year or two's time so that their stories then actually feel fresh and worthy? At present, she just feels like meh. Well, even worse, she doesn't feel meh, she feels like she was just there as a vehicle. Like, Ash was a vehicle for Echo, and McCree was a vehicle for Ash in this short. They're just kind of catalysts for each other to exist, and that's crap. Like, it not only weakens your character, it not only weakens your characters, but it detriments your pacing as well. Your pacing is crap as it is, Blizzard. Adding these more minor characters now is not helping that. Again, the Deadlock Gang haven't been expanded to the extent I kind of thought they might be, and that's good, actually. I'll argue that that's actually good. They're not prominent, expanded and understood, maybe. And does this mean that we'll be seeing more disconnected characters added to the story and game as time goes by? Like, now or as time goes by? I would prefer as time goes by. This is okay. Like, this is a good idea. But again, we need to kind of get the proper ball rolling first. Do we really need a character like Ash at present? No, we don't. So she does nothing for us in the grand scheme of things. She even needs Bob, an entire other character that's actually more interesting than her, for her to feel fleshed out properly. So, in terms of what the character is, all her worth seems to stem from others, and there's very little worth in her anyway then, and especially independently. Her reason for existing isn't even to be a character. She was only made into a full character due to her presence in the short. She wasn't initially desired as a hero creation until they made her a plot obstacle. So like Hammond, who was just made to be cute, who, like, the reason for his existence was they wanted to make a cute character. Her reason for existence is just kind of arbitrary, that they were like, oh, she was a nobody who was like our plot conflict, and she could be kind of cool, so why not? It makes it just kind of arbitrary to me, like, and that all comes across in the minimal, unimpactful character that is Ash. So, do I like that she's Hero 29? I mean, no. Do I like that she's a hero in-game? Yeah, she's tons of fun. She's great to play. Did we need another DPS? Or should we maybe have had another tank or a support? Nah. I'm not here to talk about the game, I suppose. So. Something I am here to talk about, though. Bob. God damn it. Bob, all told, across the media that's come out around this, he's easily the character with the most, like, development and growth shown. Like, he's a really interesting character. He's basically, like, lived his life genuinely caring for Ash and trying to do the best he can by her. It was initially his job, but it seems, I'd imagine, that he's now doing it of his own free will. It's really interesting. That's really cool character design that we only really see in the origin story. And that actually Reunion makes their relationship seem way more abusive than it maybe actually is. Like, to me, Reunion damages his and Ash's relationship. Doesn't do his character any justice, aside from the few instances that he gets to really, like, show his character or his personality, because there isn't a lot of character. There's a lot of personality, there's not a lot of character. Speaking of that, another character who's very similar, Echo. Some personality, very little character. I'm glad you guys are waiting to do something with Echo, because she's going to have a lot of character, yes, of course. But that's about it at this point. She's Naisu Robo-Mom who is stuck in a box and doesn't care. Part of me wants to best girl her. But then Sombra shows up and laughs at Echo for her lack of actual character, or anything, really, for that matter. An aesthetically pleasing robo-lady does not a best girl make, my friends. She has got some personality. Again, personality and character are different. Like, the use of Cowboy when McCree opens the box suggests, like a personal camaraderie of some degree. But why didn't she know what monkey meant? Why did Echo not know who McCree meant by monkey? Is that just a stupid bit of dialogue? Is it meant to try and show something about her character? Like, she would have known Scientist, apparently, so she must know Overwatch and Winston, especially as they need her back. But does this mean that she only classifies people by their function rather than what they are? So she doesn't think of Winston as a monkey, she thinks of him as a scientist, and she doesn't think of McCree as a man, she thinks of him as a cowboy. Is that, like, trying to show us a degree of her character? Unsure. If not, it's really stupid. I will discuss in an upcoming video about Echo how this element of her personality particularly could actually, like, really work into her abilities, either in the lore or in game even, maybe. Or if this is at least trying to imply such things. But that's obviously huge speculation. So we won't touch on that here. As I mentioned, using Echo as the stakes of this short, when we didn't know anything about her importance or her character, it's bad enough, but when the characters in World don't seem to know of such, or if they do, they don't really display any of the emotion that should be involved, the narrative suffers, personally, and yeah, that's my biggest problem possibly with this entire short. The only reason I was invested in Echo when she came out, like, if you see my live reaction, I literally go like this. Yeah, it's because I thought it was Athena. No. Because I had prior knowledge, because they're using the old Omnic concept art of Iris, or not Athena, when they're not labeling things lazily. But if I hadn't known that, I wouldn't have cared. If I hadn't seen that, I'd just be like, oh, there's a robot in the box, cool. Anyone without that knowledge, which is kind of easy to know, but they wouldn't have had anywhere near the investment that I did. And it kind of proves that Overwatch is a little over-reliant on its meta-contextuality and sort of intra-textuality, but it also takes it for granted at times, that ends up regularly detrimenting its storytelling ability on a fundamental level. Cinematic universes suffer from stories being detracted from in order to be used as vehicles for later storylines or characters. Why, Blizzard, have you condensed that problem into shorts less than 10 minutes long? It's bad enough in feature lengths. Each piece of the puzzle kind of has to function as its own independent piece before it can be added to the puzzle. It shouldn't need the puzzle to be a piece. I hope that makes sense, because the analogy's kind of bad. But, all told, it's a problem with cinematic universes and with Overwatch's extended universe too. But with all that in mind, with the extra textuality in mind, what can we imagine that Echo means to Overwatch, or why does she matter to them? We can't know. All that the short gives us, I mean, I can theorise again till my face is blue, but we can't know. All we do know is that her function has basically superseded her character and her wishes and her intentions. She only exists because she's needed. She's not wanted, and she doesn't want. Like, what does she want? Or has she just been told that she's needed and she's like, yes sir. Great. Interesting. And the fact that her importance was just stated to us, like, you are needed, and that kind of just drives the nail even further into the coffin, that it's just like, right, so we're just going to be told that she's important and not how or why or even suggested as such. Great. But then again, they need you is also such kind of a nebulous phrase as to what it actually means that it could have any level of importance. She could be the most important character in the story, or just any other character, and he's just like, no, they need you. And that validates McCree's sentence. Like, it can be validated somehow pretty easily, with whatever happens to Echo. It can mean anything. But hopefully, yes, it does mean something tangibly important. But it also can't be so important that her function outweighs her character, and she becomes a MacGuffin or a plot device rather than a hero, unless that's a distinctive part of her dilemma going forward. But do I really expect Blizzard to go that far? So, I mean, if you want to take a positive from it, they handled the Athena retcon better than they've handled prior retcons. I mean, they should still have known very clearly where the retcon came from, and like someone like the lead writer should very well know that the iris body that with the Athena logo is shown in the very first minute of the OG cinematic trailer, the one that's just called cinematic trailer. Yes, the image that it's shown in shows Lucio and Bastion being part of Overwatch. It's obviously a bit broken, but like the lead writer should know where that's from. If you don't know where that bit was from, then you don't know your own media very well, which shows that you're a terrible lead writer. Which suggests that I'd imagine that you do know where it's from, so why did you play it off? I don't understand why so much effort has been put into dissuading the idea that anything was ever intentional about the Athena logo on the Iris robot. That they're even pretending to not exactly know where it was shown in their own media. Yeah, come on, fuck off, guys. The connections that people made about that are very understandable. If it only happened because you were being lazy, absolutely fine. I kind of imagine that you were probably going to make Athena a character and then realised that everyone figured it out really easily and then just changed because you don't seem to like people figuring out your ideas before you do them. And sometimes you take that a bit too much to heart. Blizzard. And again, say Echo's name in the story or just not at all. Take that idea and apply it across the board. You guys keep ruining my immersion and your own storytelling so often by doing this that it's driving me nuts. So is there any kind of theme to the whole thing? Reunion, maybe? Great, what a theme. Wow. Such explore, such depth. Is it maybe more about reconciling the past? No, none of the past gets reconciled. Pfft. Is it about duty? The balance between, like, what people want and what they need, you know, desire and purpose? Maybe. I mean, no one has that conflict within themselves. Ash wants the box for no real reason. McCree wants it, or maybe even needs it for real reason. Wow. I don't think that's it. Old flames, maybe? Like, reuniting with people who were particularly important emotionally to you and moving those relationships onward from there. Actually, like, moving forward with your life a bit. I guess. I mean, that's like the best that I can come up with, and that's me trying. That's me trying really hard to be nice to this. So, like, to conclude all of that, like, how ultimately, what do I think of Reunion? Sorry, this video's been really long, but as you can see, I wanted to really break this down. So, overall, Reunion, strong technical work as ever. The animation, editing, and sound particularly. The direction is really good. Suffers occasionally on some of the vocal lines, and particularly at the transition into Act 2 with that standoff scene, which could be down to the screenplay. Its own plot is incredibly contrived, doesn't have understood stakes for its conflict. The surface conflict is superficial at best, and all it really does is just sort of let us know that there's a prior personal conflict and emotional connection between Ash and McCree, which isn't the emotional connection that is being made evident. Ultimately, the cinematic is a vehicle for releasing Ash and Echo. It's much more that than there to tell a story, and the vehicle use still doesn't do much for either. For Ash, Echo, Overwatch, storytelling, none of it. So, you know, I'm glad to see Echo in world, but am I happy with the execution? No. It's kind of a running theme all told, as the characters introduced have minimal tangible impact on the story. Am I kind of happy to see them in it there? Am I happy with the execution? Definitely not. Like, Ash is meh. She needs Bob to feel close to being a complete character. Echo has potential, but is seemingly deemed more important for her function than wanted for her character, and that sucks. So, overall, the entire short has minimal effect on the overall landscape of the narrative, despite the introduction of 3 new characters, and McCree's sort of answer to recall, which, while potentially best for his character, is again not understood or foreseeable as to what it will entail. All we know, like with Ryan and May, even though theirs are more understood than this, is his response, not what he intends to do because of it. Freeing Echo doesn't really count. Like, he seems to just consider that a duty of his. It's just something he needs to do. And he's not going to do it going forward because he's done it now. So with the nature of the Cinematic's purpose as like a release vehicle, and its overall less causally determined plot, sacrificing a lot of its potential substance, Blizzard's poor narrative pacing again further exacerbates their general narrative flaws. If their release schedule was more frequent, these smaller, less substantiated stories wouldn't feel anywhere near as shallow or disingenuous. I know you're playing a long game, Blizzard, but at times it seems the game is way too long, or the breadcrumbs you leave are way too much like crumbs rather than bread. So as you can see, I don't like Reunion. Hopefully at this point you can actually see why I don't like Reunion, and why I think it's as close to objectively bad as I can argue. So at this point I am disappointed and kind of exhausted. So Reunion gets 6 out of 10 from me, and that's me being kind of nice. And I'm sick of being nice, so I've now decided it only gets 5 out of 10. But I won't get sick of being nice to you guys. It's only Blizzard that deserves my ire, and they only deserve it because their stories could be so much better than they are. So I hope to see you guys again in the next video, where I'll be exploring the possibilities for Echo going forward, notably trying to discern who or what exactly she could be. If you're so inclined, please do all the YouTube things so I can see you again next time, and we can hopefully see the Overwatch story improve going forward as well, or I'll make it better. So thanks for listening. Honestly, thank you for listening if you stayed this long. I really appreciate anyone taking the time to do so. I've been Euclidean Vision. You take care of yourselves, and make sure to always remember that your best girl better be worth appreciating.